Hello there, Met fans. I know it's been a tough day today, and I know a lot of you I see online are panicking. So for the Met fans in my life, I just wanted to make this little video to say we shouldn't be panicking about this. Let me start with this. Let's start by talking about Pete Alonso. And before I go forward on this, I just want to talk a little bit about the stat WAR, wins above replacement, because I'm going to be using that in my argument. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, this is just an egghead stat. Oh, these are just numbers that people pull out their asses. I get that. And that's probably because, if you feel that way, it's probably because that stat has never been properly explained to you. So let me start just by the thing about WAR, W-A-R, wins above replacement. The thing that most people don't understand is the R part, the replacement part. That's what really trips people up. So let's look at it this way. Let's say, Pete Alonso had a really good year hitting last year. I mean, look at those. His numbers are really good. A lot of homers, a lot of RBIs, hit really well. Here's one of the points about the way WAR works, right? As well as he hit last year, if you could clone Pete Alonso, make 8 Pete Alonsos, and you put a Pete Alonso at every position on the field, Pete Alonso at catcher, Pete Alonso at third, Pete Alonso at shortstop, and you played a season with that team, yes, you would score a lot more runs, but you would probably still be a losing team because any ball that was put on the field would be a disaster. So many balls would get through the holes. Your catcher would have passed balls, wouldn't be able to throw anybody out. Balls hit that are normally routine fly balls. Alonso wouldn't be able to get to them because he's not very fast. So the point is, same thing. If you took Kyle Schwarber and stick him in 8 positions, you're not going to have a very good team. So the point is, being able to play a difficult position has an inherent value. Like being able to play shortstop in of itself, not even talking about a great defensive shortstop, just being able to play the position competently has a value, has a very significant value. Because you just took a random guy who's not a shortstop, put him there, you're going to lose a lot of runs over a season, which will lead to a lot of losses over a season. So there's inherent value in positions. And some positions are more valuable than others. Shortstop is by far the most valuable position. Catcher is close. Catcher is also very valuable. But the position which is least valuable by far is first base. I mean, think about it. Just about anybody, and I mean almost anybody who's a Major League Baseball player, could, if they needed to, play first base competently. Just think about when the American National League, when the National League did not use a DH and you played the World Series. If an American League team wanted their good hitting DH to play somewhere, where did they stick them? At first base. Because almost anybody can play first base without killing you, right? You're not going to stick a guy at shortstop who's a DH, it will kill you, right? So that's the point. So the fact, people are like, a lot of times people look at players' numbers and say, hey, how come this guy is more WAR than another guy and the other guy is more bigger offensive values? For example, last year, Pete Alonso had 3.4 WAR with these really good offensive numbers. Francisco Lindor, plays shortstop, had what people consider to be an off year. He had 5.9 WAR, nearly twice as valuable as Alonso. And a lot of that is in the fact that playing shortstop is inherently valuable and playing first base is not valuable at all. Because, and when it comes to replacement value, like if you lose your first baseman, almost any Major League Baseball player could play that position if they needed to. So you can get a competent replacement. Like there's more guys who can play first base that can hit decently or hit well, many more guys than could play shortstop and hit well. So that's why, the offensive value of a first baseman, the value of a first baseman in terms of WAR is reduced because you can get replacements for that. You really can't get replacements for shortstop. That's one reason why Alonso isn't as valuable as you might think. The other reason is he's not a very good defensive shortstop. In fact, statistically, he's one of the worst in the league. And I know people are going to say, oh, Pete Alonso, look, he's really good at scooping up that ball. And he is, and I appreciate that. However, if you take any team, a fan of any team who has a first baseman who's playing that position for at least 5 years, and you ask them about their first baseman, they're going to say, oh, my first baseman, at least 90% of fans are going to say, oh yeah, my guy's really good at scooping out that ball. If you play that position long enough, you're going to be good at that. They're all pretty good at that. But Alonso's okay at that. But He's got horrible range. He's big, doesn't move side to side well. And as we know, he's really bad at throwing the ball to first base. He's terrible at it. I mean, the reason Senga got hurt this year, which might have derailed their whole season, is Alonso made a bad throw to him. I mean, and Senga claims that he hurt his knee before he awkwardly jumped up to catch a bad throw by Alonso. But like, he's being a nice, polite guy. More than likely, Alonso injured Senga, which derailed the season, which is one of the reasons we didn't make the playoffs. So he's a bad fielder. So between all that, despite his really strong offensive numbers, Alonso's wins above replacement average, over the last 3 years, he's averaged 3.1 WAR a year, 3.1 wins above replacement. And just to put it in context, like a 5 WAR year is like an all-star year. Like a 7 and up, you're an MVP candidate. And then if you're superhuman like Aaron Judge, you get over 10. But that's very rare. Usually the best guy in the league most years is 7 or 8 or around that range, right? So 3 is okay. 3.1 is fine, but it's not a great year. Even Alonso's best, like I think he was 5.3 WAR when he hit the 53 home runs. Even that is like still not as good as Lindor last year, where he was 5.9. So my point is this: he's not to take anything from Alonso, but you can find replacements at first base, and because you can find replacements at first base, his value isn't as high. And he's a guy that if he's on your team, he will give you about an extra 3 wins a year. Well, that's great. That's great. Extra 3 wins a year is fine. But for $31 million a year, which is what he's going to get paid on average, that's not a good deal. It's not. You could take that $31 million and you could spend it on other players. Now, if the Mets don't spend the money, I'll be pissed off. If they spend that money someplace else, for $31 million a year, they can get more than 3.1 extra wins a year. They might get 4 or 5 extra wins a year for that money if they spend their money wisely. So not paying that money to Alonso could make the Mets better if, and only if, they spend it, on someone. They spend it wisely, and I'm hoping they do. If they don't, I'll come make another video and say they messed up, they're wrong. But hopefully they'll spend that money wisely. And so now we got past Alonso. I think we can spend that money wisely and get better if we spend that money. Let's get to Edwin Diaz, right? Now he got paid $23 million a year. Now he was really good, really, really great last year. Really great in 2022. Obviously terrible in 2019. Had injury problems other years. Like he's a really good reliever, but closers are one of the most overrated positions in all of sports because they pitch 60 or 70 innings a year. And yes, from an emotional standpoint, it's a big inning. It's like, when a pitcher blows the game in the 9th inning, you feel terrible. You think about it for weeks. You kick something. You get so upset. But look, blowing a game in the 7th inning, if you blow a lead in the 7th inning, you might not even get to have a guy close it on the 9th. I mean, giving up a run to blow a lead, whether it's the 6th, 7th, or 8th inning, it's really not much different than the 9th inning. People like to think the 9th inning is something magical, like only certain guys can handle the pressure of the 9th inning. Now, look, I find the whole thing about clutch and pressure, I find a lot of that to be BS in the sense that a lot of these baseball players, they started out with nothing. They had to go through the minors, getting paid nothing. At every level, they needed to come through. If they didn't come through, they're going to have no money in their lives. And what are they going to get? They're going to get a regular job after that. They're under pressure their whole lives. In fact, they even made it to the major leagues and performed in single A and double A and triple A. And made it to the majors and performed there. They can handle pressure. So I don't get this point, these guys, there's something special about the 9th inning. Yes, if you have a 1-run lead in the 9th inning, yes, there's a little more what they call leverage, a little more marginal value than the 8th or 9th, but it's not as big as you think. And the point is, you got to get 27 outs. You give a couple of runs in the 2nd inning, it's still gonna hurt you. So the fact that relief pitchers pitch a small number of innings limits how valuable they are. They're worth much more psychologically to the average fan's psyche because of the 9th inning situation than they are from a practical standpoint. So just about all closers are overpaid. And this wasn't overpay. Once again, the value that Diaz is going to give you you could get that same value or more value if you spend that $23 million a year on somebody else. Once again, if you spend wisely, if you spend it on two, really solid, $10 million, $12 million guys, get two guys that are good, in the long run, you're going to have more value than one guy Diaz gave you, right? And even if you spend the money, and just talking about replacement, right? We're basically replacing Devin Williams now. People are like, oh, he was so awful last year. And look, if he's just as bad next year, we made a big mistake. But I don't think he necessarily will be. And this is when I'm going to bring up another stat really briefly. Right? It's called fielding independent pitching, which they call FIP in the sabermetric community. And what this really is that it's been proven by looking at numbers. Like, all right, so when you're a pitcher, you can either strike a guy out, you can give up a walk, or you can give up a home run. Every other play, a ball is being hit somewhere in the field, and a fielder has an opportunity to field it. I mean, maybe it's hit so hard that no one has a chance to field it, but the ball is in play, right? So this guy called Voss McCracken, about 20 years ago, did a study that showed that if you look at how good pitchers are at getting outs when the ball is in play, not a strikeout, not a walk or a home run, when the ball is in play, that the worst pitchers in the world and the best pitchers in the world, their performance in that situation, with the ball being in play, it would fluctuate wildly. Like say a Randy Johnson or someone have a great year one year at getting outs when the ball is in play, and have a terrible year the next year, then have a great year, then have a terrible year. And we'll go back and forth, maybe a couple of good years, a couple of bad years. And this is like pretty much every pitcher in the history of baseball. How well you do when the ball is put in play varies wildly. So the point is, it is not a repeatable skill. Nobody has the ability to control whether or not you can get guys out when the ball is put in play. With very small exceptions. The one exception is a knuckleball pitcher. The knuckleball pitcher is an exception to this, which I found. But aside from that, the vast majority of pitchers, you can predict how well a guy is going to do, knowing nothing else. If you just look at how many guys he strikes out, per 9 innings, how many guys he walks per 9 innings, and how many home runs he gives up per 9 innings. If you know those three things are the best predictor of what the guy's ERA is going to be, knowing nothing else. As a matter of fact, so that's what that stat does. Basically, it looks at how many home runs you gave up per 9 innings, how many walks you gave up per 9 innings, and how many home runs you gave up per 9 innings. And then it assumes you're playing you have a completely average defense, and you had completely average luck in terms of whether the balls are put in play, whether they put into the gap where no one can get them, or whether they're hit to somebody. So you have average defense, average luck, and an average distribution of the hits. For example, if you pitch 9 innings and you give up 9 hits in 9 innings, if you gave up exactly 1 hit every inning and they're all singles, you're fine. You pitched a shutout. But if you gave up all 9 hits in 1 inning, you're out of the game. You pitched a terrible game. So, or it's better to think of a reliever. Reliever pitched 9 times and he had 9 appearances and gave up 1 run, 1 hit, each of his 9 appearances, all singles. And he came in to start the inning, let's say. He had a 0 ERA. But if he pitched 9 times and 1 time he came in, he gave up all 9 hits in the same inning, well, then his ERA is going to be like 6 or 7, right? Because he gave up hit after hit after hit in 1 inning. So the fielding independent pitching assumes, you have average luck as far as that goes. And I say luck because yes, you can think of a clutch pitcher, like a guy who's good at getting out guys with men on base, which Diaz was very good at last year. He would walk guys all over the place. If you're a Met fan, you know that. He was always walking the leadoff man, putting guys on base and get out of the jam. And you can say, oh, he's clutch. He did it. He's really good in those clutch situations. Just like clutch hitting, clutch pitching isn't really a thing, right? The stats show that how well you do at men on base, no matter how good or bad you are, it fluctuates from year to year. So the point is, he was a little bit fortunate last year that he got himself to all these jams and got out of them. And on the flip side, Devin Williams last year was incredibly unfortunate in those situations. And you can say, oh yes, he choked, but in the long run, these things do tend to even out, which is why a stat like FIP, fielding independent pitching, which is expressed in terms of ERA, it's proved to be a better predictor of future ERA than than ERA is. If you look at a guy's ERA and look at his FIP and say, how is he going to do next year? The FIP will predict it better. It's a better indication. And with that all said, the point is this. Edwin Diaz's career FIP is like 2.54, which is very good. Devin Williams' career FIP is 2.45. So based on that, and also the fact that he's about 8 months younger than Diaz, it's possible that he might be better the rest of his career than Edwin Diaz. So, and we got him for less money than we would have had to pay Diaz. So my point is, I'm not saying it's going to happen. He might have another 4 or 5 ERA next year, and I'll be wrong. But my point is that he is not Devin Williams is not necessarily going to be bad again. I mean, guys have a bad year. Look at Edwin Diaz in 2019. Look what he did after that, right? I mean, you can have one bad year, and look, he had a lot of bad luck that year. I mean, he gave up, he pitched poorly, but, if you watched him that year, he was blowing the ball by guys, and every once in a while, the guy would take a big swing, and just a lot of bats net the ball. Why did it only happen that year and not other years? I mean, he has the same nasty stuff all the other years. Sometimes just bad things happen to you, right? But in the long run, I think Devin Williams is going to be okay, right? And once again, we've got Devin Williams now. Will they spend that $23 million they didn't spend on Edwin Diaz to get another reliever or a couple of relievers? If they do, they can get more value for that $23 million than they would have by giving it to Edwin Diaz. Now, maybe the Mets won't spend the money. Maybe for some reason Cohen's gone cheap. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think they are going to spend a lot of money, and they're going to spend it more wisely. And the last thing I'll say is this. People are acting like, Met fans online right now are acting like the Yankees just traded Bernie Williams and Jeter and Mariano Rivera after the 2000 season. That's what they're acting like right now. This Mets core has won nothing. What have they won? I mean, do you remember I remember this, the end of the 2022 season, that series against the Braves. None of the Mets, other than Starling Marte, could get a big hit in that series. And the same thing in that series against the Padres. Yes, Pete Alonso got that one big hit, but was he getting big hits at the last week of the season last year when we needed it? No. I mean, yes, this core has not gotten it done at all. So why not start over? We're not saying strip it down and spend no money and be like a poor team. No, we're saying strip it down, save the money on core guys you would have paid, and build it back up with that same money. Change the team around. I like the Nemo trade. I like getting Simeon rather than Nemo. I like that. And I would like if they get a fielder like Bellinger or Tucker or somebody like that, or there's this Japanese guy they could get that maybe could play first base. Like there are options here, and they can spend, as long as they spend the money, as long as they still have one of the highest payrolls in baseball, which, if they still remain as the highest payroll in baseball, which they were last year, if they're the highest payroll in baseball in 2026, that means between now and the start of the season, they would have spent a lot of money. And if they spend it wisely, those guys they spend the money on can give the Mets more value than they got from Alonso and Diaz. All right, they can get a lot more value. So what I'm saying here is, don't panic. Right? Don't panic. All right, it's not even officially winter yet. There's a long way to go. Don't panic, Met fans. All right, and I'm looking forward to the season. Let's go Mets.